Hey everyone, welcome to the Intelligent Conversations podcast, where we believe everyone has a form of intelligence that resides within them. Our goal is to encourage these type of conversations for our audience to listen to. Without further ado, welcome to the show. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Intelligent Conversations podcast. Today I have the honor to speak with Hadriana Leo. She is a wealth coach and helps women take control of their financial lives. Hadriana has had over a decade of experience in the financial management and has helped dozens of people reach their financial goals. She believes that there are certain steps to become your own hero. So Hadriana, thank you for coming on. I'm really excited to hear what you have to say and just overall just looking forward to what you have to say. But I'm one that likes to get straight to the point. I noticed when you reached out that you said that you had a Cinderella story. So yes. I think it's only natural of me to ask, what is your Cinderella story?
I know. Actually, I call myself an undercover Cinderella because primarily because one, I was not rescued by a Prince Charming, and I never had a wicked stepmother. My parents love each other. They're still together. All that good stuff's going down. But I do believe I had a bit of a Cinderella mindset. And that is one that I've seen reflected in the women that I talk to, my girlfriends, my friends, my clients. When I talk about being an undercover Cinderella, I'm talking about being, on the outside, the strong woman, the woman that's like, I am woman, hear me roar, watch me take over and all that. Very, very strong external persona. But on the inside, I was still doing that internal damsel in distress thing where I was kind of still waiting to be rescued. I was still waiting for Prince Charming to ride in and rescue me and fix everything that wasn't right, especially from a financial perspective and from the perspective of like me and how I perceive myself and what I considered wholeness for me as a human and as a woman. So that's kind of my Cinderella story. I can say that I have my Prince Charming. We've been married for over 20 years, almost 22. But yes, even in that, the undercover Cinderella was still kind of there poking around.
I think that's great. Thank you for clearing that up. Undercover. I like that. Sounds way cooler, right? Undercover Cinderella.
I know it's me and my spy movie. I love the James Bond in it.
Add a little, so the James Bond to it. Perfect there. So you mentioned you wanted to be that strong woman, right? And then on the inside, you're kind of distressed. I'm kind of interested to kind of get a little bit of your journey. How did you become that, from the inside? How did you become that person that you were talking about from the inside?
You know what? I know that a lot of it, that waiting to be rescued, that feeling of not being whole without having a counterpart to come take care of it, by and large, it's something that I believe is systemically programmed into us. I think gender roles, and I'm going to be saying male and female a lot, but understanding that there are those who identify outside of those. But the stories that we have been programmed with have very specific roles for what the guys do and what the girls do, and up till now, this is being recorded in 2022, and you still see a girl section in the toys full of dolls, and you see a boy section of toys full of trucks. The programming is still there. Now, I want to make sure I'm clear about this, Josh. I grew up with my brothers. I was changing carburetors and had greasy fingers from the time I know myself. I hated being called inside to do any manner of housework, but it needed to be done. So I was exposed to being able to do all this stuff because my parents raised me that way. You just did whatever was there to do, you did it. So I think there was a lot of conflict internally, having this freedom as a child growing up to do whatever my brothers were doing, and then growing up in a world where I remember one time I'm dating myself here, but I grew up in the beautiful island of St. Lucia in the Caribbean.
Mm.
And in that time, the girls still were not supposed to be seen or heard. You're just supposed to do your thing in the corner. And I remember one time my brothers had taught me to ride a bicycle, one of the very few girls in the community who did. And I fell. I was riding around the library one time and there was some sand and grit on the street. And just, going around the corner, the wheel just slipped out from under me and I fell. And I remember one of the old, grouchy old men that was sitting in the gate somewhere. I heard him mutter, "Oh, that's right. That's bound to happen to you because you have no business being on a bike." Oh, oh my goodness, that really, really just pissed me off. But it's that liberation, that feeling that I know I could do anything, but knowing that the system, the world around me, didn't quite welcome that I could do everything. And it's that conflict that kind of had me brash and strong and roaring on the outside, but still fighting that inner dynamic where I know there's resistance on the outside. I know. Ask any woman who walked into a car dealership. I don't know if you've had that experience of maybe your mom or your girlfriend trying to buy a car. It's hell
Oh,
because
for sure.
they pat us on the head like we're good dogs. I'm like, no, it's quite a thing. So a lot of what I experienced on the inside came out of conflict of what I saw as my potential and what where the system wanted to keep me.
Gotcha. So you had almost that freedom, and then there was limits, right? Society was
Yes.
placing limits on you, and you wanted to fight and break those limits that were there. Am I
Yes.
getting that kind of right there?
You are absolutely right there. And it takes a certain amount of strength to keep fighting. Do you know what I mean? After a while, you kind of get beat on the head and you're like, I'm just tired. I'm just tired. But I'll tell you, in all honesty, part of what kind of helped me come out from being that undercover Cinderella was not fighting the system anymore. Like, it's like, I really did get
Interesting.
tired. I decided not to fight the system. I learned the system. So I became a traditional financial advisor and I learned money inside and out. I mean, I managed people's money and I did it well. And then I decided, okay, that's the system. That's the game. Those are the rules. I know how to play to win, but I'm going to do it on my terms.
I actually just think it's so great that you mentioned that, because a lot of people I hear constantly just all over the place, they're complaining about, oh, there's just this in place. And then I'm like, honestly, if you were to learn the game and then play it better than anyone else,
Yeah.
then you win and you come out on top, right? And
Mhm.
I was definitely just, this is naturally, my parents didn't raise me this way, but I just naturally was competitive. I'm like, I'm going to either be first or last is kind of my mentality. It's like, I'm either going to be just relax and be last and just have a good time, or I'm going to win type of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the best way I found to do that was just play the game. I'm like,
Yeah.
you have to realize that you're actually playing the game. So
Yeah.
I kind of want to ask this, kind of came to mind. How did you, ownership is kind of what's stirring in my mind right now. How would you help someone, take ownership of their lives, take ownership, maybe in more specific question here, how would you help them take ownership of their financial lives?
Yeah, and I love that I love that you've tied it to ownership because I think that's a big part of it. A lot of our sense of not having control, that feeling that, I mean, all of us feel it, male or female, it
Uh-huh.
doesn't matter. There are places or experiences in our lives where we're like, I have no control here, and we feel that's where the anxiety. Listen, you take control when you appreciate, when you honor, when you can love everything about yourself. When you can make any experience unique to you, you can absolutely take control. You can take ownership of your journey by making it yours. And that's where I'm saying, learn the rules, then play it in a way that you play it to win. So a lot of times when it comes to finances, you don't know how many people, Josh, how many women have said, I'm not good at math. Women will say, you know what, I suck at managing money. I've never been good at math. And I sit there and I'm like, managing money actually has very little to do with math. You know, the basic concepts that we attribute to managing money, addition and subtraction, we kind of mastered that not long past kindergarten, right? However, every last one of us struggles to understand that if we don't have money in the bank, we should stop spending, you know, but we whip out a credit card and we whip out our lines of credit and we whip out all of that. The truth is, every financial decision that you're making comes down to an emotional response. And I said this on my thing, on my own show yesterday. Every decision that we make is an emotional one, and then we use logic to justify it. So taking ownership of that understanding, own why we make the decisions we're making, honor that, and then make decisions that will get you to where you want to go. So I think taking ownership comes down to allowing yourself to have unique experiences that honor who you are, right?
I love the answer that you had there. It kind of reminds me of, I talked with someone back recently on the show, and I remember they continually brought up self-awareness. You have to have that awareness in yourself to recognize, hey, like I can actually do this, like take control of this situation. But I kind of want to ask this. This is just kind of a random side note that came to me, but when you were mentioning finances, it really is just addition and subtraction. The thing I've recognized, because I've dabbled in that area and I'm well aware of what's going on in my personal finances, but I've found that it's actually vocabulary that's the biggest thing. It's not math. It's actually learning what the word is. And I don't know if that's true. I would love it if you could shed some light on that.
Well, you know what? I think the vocabulary is important because we need to understand the concepts. I think the vocabulary comes down to learning the game. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Understanding the game. What are the rules? What can I do in this position? Like, can I throw past this many yards without a catch? Or I don't know. I'm not even a football person, but I hear it's what's happening these days. But you know, once you understand the rules, you understand the boundaries, you understand the rules. That's where the vocabulary comes in, because then you can talk the talk, and then your strategy is where you walk the walk. You know what I mean? And I think the two together help you take ownership and kind of stand strong in whatever strategy you decide to deploy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the two together are absolutely important. And I think, again, to your point of the vocabulary, I think the vocabulary allows you to make a seat for yourself at the table where these conversations are happening. You're learning, you're listening, you're understanding. And when the time's right, you can chime in with something that sounds like, hey, this person knows what they're talking about. So yes, I agree with you. The vocabulary goes in there definitely with your strategy for sure.
Yeah, you mentioned the talk the talk and then you lead to the walk to walk. And I full believer in that. I think that there's this famous quote that came to mind. It's your thoughts become your words, right? And then your words become your action become what happens in a year, and then your year becomes your destiny. I don't remember the exact quote off the top of my head.
Don't worry.
But like it comes down to your thoughts. But specifically the talk to walk, like making it come into action. How do you help someone? Because I think fear is that limiting factor, right?
Yeah.
In between the talk to walk. How would you help someone overcome that fear, and instead of just speaking it and understanding it, actually implementing it and making it a reality?
Yeah, you kind of need to want something more than you're afraid of that other thing. I kind of equate it to the monster in the closet. It's kind of like it's dark. You think there's a monster in the closet, but you really need to go to the bathroom, right? Which one's going to rule that experience for you? Is the monster going to keep you stuck in the bed? You're going to soil yourself, you're going to ruin your bedding, Or are you going to want to preserve that scenario enough that you're going to run past the monster and get to your destination? I honestly believe that women have let go of their dreams because of the fear of, the financial system, the way everything's set up, and what have you. And sometimes the sheer challenge of it all. We have to name it. So name your fear. What exactly are you afraid of? And I don't like when people say, kill the fear. The truth is, I think fear is there for a reason. Fear
Mm-hmm.
is there to inform us. It's either to tell us, okay, this is the hurdle, let's strategize how we get over it. Or fear is there to say to us, you know what, this is something that we need to handle, we need to deal with it. Let's work on a strategy, let's make a plan. So for me, I don't try to avoid fear. What I help my clients to do, though, is to help them latch onto a dream, a desire, something that they want badly enough that they will face the fear. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, it's almost like a survival, like it's in our DNA, right? To fear is naturally going to happen to us, and
Yeah.
it's in our instincts when fear happens to run from it or go up and fight it.
Yeah.
So I was just, that's a great explanation that you had there, and I think it ties perfectly back into ownership, right? It's like you're taking ownership of your life, and you're like,
Yeah.
this is a fear of mine, right? And I I have this and then another business that I do as well. And I'm telling you, every day there's days where I'm just like terrified, right? It's like
Yeah.
I mean
Is this the day?
it's literally, you're just like, I have no clue if this is gonna work out, right? Like
Yeah.
I think naturally as human beings, we want to be able to see, 2, 3, 4, 5 years in the future.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden when there's that uncertainty, like, wait, this 2, 3, 4, 5 year plan that's in place that for this is what I'm envisioning might not happen. It's
Yeah.
like it can become daunting and you almost want to just cower and hide. So how do you help someone just break out of that? Just how do you get someone to say, you know what, I'm not going to cower behind the shadows. I'm going to break out and I'm going to seize the opportunity.
One of the things I help my women to see is this. Well, a question I typically ask is, think back to every challenge you've faced up to this moment in your life. Mm-hmm. Every hurdle you've hit, every disappointment you've had to deal with, every time you were told no, every time you lost an opportunity, every single time that thing happened and you came up to it. What happened? Well, guess what? The answer always is you dealt with it. You worked around it. Even if the answer was, I ran away screaming with my tail between my legs, whatever it was, you're here in this moment. The challenge has never killed you. The hurdle might have hurt your leg, but it didn't put you out. So kind of like resting in the assurance of knowing that even if you can't see every hurdle up ahead, having the confidence in knowing when it comes, you can face it. I think that takes a lot of the stress and anxiety off. I think one of the things I do with my clients is I call it a get out of fail plan. So, how you on Monopoly, you get out of jail.
Yeah.
In my programs, we have a get out of fail plan because a lot of times we're so gung-ho. I'm ready to do this, success is ahead right around the next corner, not realizing that the road to success is never a straight line. It looks a lot like the stock market sometimes, up and down, right? So how about instead of having an unrealistic expectation of success, we actually create a practical plan to get out of failing, right? Mm-hmm. That means 1, you're going to fail. 2, if I make a plan for it, if I can identify what failing looks like, in fact, I help them identify what it's like to slip. So before you actually fall, what is it going to look like when you start slipping? slipping into a previous behavior that you wanted to change, or slipping back into a fear mentality. What's it going to look like to slip? So you can recognize, whoa, I'm slipping, I'm starting to slide, and my journey is starting to get a little erratic. When we formulate a get out of fail plan, we set reasonable expectations, and you don't have to have a crash before you get back up. Do you see what I mean, Josh? It's like, let's plan realistically. We are going to mess this up.
I like the correlation you made to the stock market, because I mean, overall, right? It's every day, it's bam, up and down,
Yep,
right?
up and down.
And that's, I mean, it's similar to, I think, everyone's lives. It doesn't even have to be finances, right? It's, you're one moment you're like freaking feel like you're top of the world, and then the next moment you're like, crap. But something that I know a lot of people that trade stocks and stuff, I'm like, they have that plan in place. They recognize patterns in order to make the right trade, in order to make money, make success. It's almost like you need that failure, right? In order to get that success. The stock price has to be low in order for you to get it high, right? Like, it has to be there at some point.
Those depressions are opportunities for the people who are looking for the right signs, right? And you jump on those. So just like a stop order or anything, I don't want to get technical about the stock market, but just about anything can be used to help you identify that and see the opportunity to get back up again. Let's run this. And by golly, Josh, I think a lot of times finances are like do or die situations. Oh my goodness, doom and gloom. It's like the sky is falling if your stock drops, or the sky is falling if your real estate opportunity kind of hits a hurdle. Can we just lighten up just a little bit? Do you know what I mean? Like, take some of the strain and stress out of that experience, and have a wonderful life. Like, by golly gee, I think that's a big part of what's wrong with this thing anyway. So that's just me.
I agree. I think a lot of people get so focused on making the money that they actually forget to enjoy the life, right? That they live, enjoy the process of getting to that point. Because something I constantly hear, it's like there's people that go out and they're just like, all right, I'm gonna work my tail end off, I'm gonna make all this money and then retire, right? I hear it all the time. And I'm like, well, do you actually like the business you're starting or you're getting into? They're like, it'll be fine though, I'm good at it. And I'm like, okay, you're good at it, but do you actually like enjoy it? And most of the time it's no. And I'm like, all right, let's say you get it. And I've talked with enough people that have gotten that success, and like, honestly, the result's not as miraculous as you think. It's not like when you hit that millionaire status, it's not like, hey everyone, look at me, I'm a millionaire, like, wow, I'm on top of the world. It's just
now
like,
what?
the number in your bank account just flips from 6 figures to 7 figures. Like, it just whoop, oh, that was cool, right? And
add a zero, that's it.
And that's all that happened. You're like, oh, this is so cool, but then it's just a high. You're like, oh, that was cool, now I can say it. But the result is never as good as the process in my mind. And I constantly tell people that are asking me, oh, how do I do it? I'm like, you have to learn to love the process first. Like, if you can't learn to love the process, then the result, one, won't be as rewarding, and two, you're just not going to be as happy leading up to that point. And then you're just going to keep repeating the process once you get the result. Because let's say you get that millionaire status, you're like, all right, that's great, let's see, it wasn't as good as I thought, maybe I have to be a multimillionaire, let's get 10 million. Then they just keep pushing, they keep just digging themselves in a hole, and they never actually get fulfillment because they never do something that they personally enjoy. So I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but I'd love to hear what you have to add.
You know what, I could go so many places with this. I'll confess, I love confessing things because it gets it off my chest. I'll confess that I'm challenged by that because I'm all about the finish line. I'm all about getting to the end, and
Mhm.
I had to learn to enjoy the process. So one of the things I ask my clients is, when you look at how you do goal achievement, goal attainment, how you hit a goal, are you a marathoner or a sprinter? And I'm all sprint. I'm
Oh.
like, let's just hit it hard, hit it now, and go. But for people like me, saving for retirement just doesn't happen. Like, are you kidding? I'm not working for a project that comes to completion in 40 years. Like, what? No, I'm all about the sprint. So when again, back to ownership, owning who you are and how you do money is essential. So someone like you who's all about enjoy the process, would think that you would butt heads with me. But here's what I did. Because I understand I'm a sprinter, I set small goals. So short-term goals work for me. So I have miniature processes. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And I have short timelines because that's how I operate best. Someone like you who's all about the process, and you don't mind, going for a year, 2 years, 3 years, just working it through. That's awesome for you. You're good with that. Both of us get to create wealth, and both of us get to enjoy the journey because both of us now have understood that about ourselves. But I have to also enjoy the process. I have to trust the process. And in trusting the process, I didn't try to change who I am. I used who I am to work the game so I could still win without trying to turn myself into something I'm not. So I'm 100,000% all about trusting and enjoying the process. I had to learn that. I'm still learning that. And I think you mentioned you're more competitive.
Mhm.
I'm certainly not competitive. I can't be bothered. I'm just here to have fun, live a great life, and be happy. However, gamifying things for you would be
Oh
an
yeah.
awesome strategy, right? Just tell Josh it's either him or the guy next door, and watch Josh just flick a switch and turn it on, right? Me, if you say to a client that is not competitive, it's between you and the person next door. Let's see who can have the best real estate investment. And I might just sit there and say, oh yeah, you go ahead, just have fun, do your thing, and I'm just going to sit here and chill. Different approaches,
Mhm.
but that doesn't mean we both can't win. So I'm all for it. Understanding who you are allows you to enjoy the process because you can rig the system for your win, for your success.
Exactly. I think it all goes back to understanding the system and playing the game, right?
Yeah,
It's you got to learn to play the game,
100%.
and then come at it from an approach, recognize the opportunities and say, hey, you know what? Maybe I could take this approach, right?
Mhm.
And change the game. I watch my favorite sports basketball, and I'm sure you've heard of Michael Jordan, right? Phenomenal
Yeah.
guy. And he changed the game, like just in popularity wise. Like he definitely changed that. But something you'll hear a lot today is Steph Curry.
Yes.
Now, from a basketball player's standpoint, I'm like, that's actually like, I remember my high school coach, he said, honestly, the only shots we're gonna be taking are layups and threes. In the
Oh,
1990s, that wasn't happening. You just played basketball, right? But now,
yeah.
like Steph Curry changed it so much that like he changed the game so much that now like people only take threes and like layups. There's no
Yeah.
mid-range game anymore.
Yeah.
And it kind of reminds me, I'm like, those type of players, they change the game because they're like, okay, I'm gonna play by the rules, right? They played the game of
Yeah.
basketball, but how can I make it so then it works in my favor, right? How
Yeah.
do I help this game make it so then I win, right?
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
they found a way. Like Steph Curry's like, well, I'm a good shooter. I'm short. He's extremely short for a basketball player. Right? He's still
Yes, I
tall.
know. I was about to say my 5 feet too. He's a giant.
Yeah, he's huge for a basketball player. I mean, small for a basketball player, giant for your everyday Joe.
Everyone else. Yeah.
But he he's pretty short, and he took the approach like, hey, like you can be a shooter, and I mean, as long as I have good ball handling skills, I can
Yeah.
take a step back and
Yeah.
shoot a three and it's farther away. I'm not getting in with all these guys that are like 7 foot and stuff.
Yeah.
I'm
And he
only
could maneuver. And that's the thing. I love that analogy. I actually have heard of Steph Curry. I think, imagine what he has done for others like him who were struggling to find their place, to find a way to make a mark on the court. So, him doing that and doing it effectively didn't just change the game for him, it changed the sport overall, but it also, he was able to exemplify a winning strategy for the short basketballer. And I think that's massive because we're opening doors when we get creative, when we learn the system and we work the system for us. I love that strategy. Another reason to love him, Steph Curry, even more.
Yeah, I'm a Jazz fan, so I'm a little bitter at him sometimes, but it's okay. But
That's all
I
right.
have to
It's
respect
okay.
him. He's a good dude overall, and he's not like just going out like some players I know that maybe aren't the best examples for people in everyday life.
Yeah, I know. And I think, you know what, that's another great point, Josh, because we see the other players that are, they're one thing on the court, there's something else off the court, or the ones where if you just breathe on them, they fall down and they call foul. I'm not going to mention anyone's names. But we see all of these examples of less than stellar or exemplary behavior. But do we quit loving basketball? No, no. And I think for a lot of women, because of how we approach the world, we see all of these examples of, shysters and, cheaters and con men and all of that in money and wealth building, real estate development, stock market, all of those avenues. We see that. And instead of trying to find a way to keep loving the strategy, we just chuck it all and say, I distrust this whole sector. There's nothing but losers and cheaters in there. And we just step away from it. Well, no, you need to appreciate, love the opportunity that's in there to, maybe become a landlord. Or if you don't like being a landlord, maybe real estate as a private investor is the avenue for you because you hear of or you yourself have had a less than stellar experience. Doesn't mean we throw it all out, because basketball is just a fun game. I mean, it's a great game. And when it's played well, we need to sit and enjoy that. And if you've got skills, go play.
Yeah, you mentioned trust there. I think that's a huge
Oh,
thing
it's
that
huge.
we need. And it kind of plays into, I want to drop the intelligent question of the day. And I'll share my thoughts on this after. I have an experience in my life that I think would be very beneficial for everyone. But how do you establish trust with people through just relationships, society, things like that?
Yeah. Trust will never be established if the other party is not open to trusting. And it takes both sides. Trust is always risky business. It always is, because we cannot trust until we have evidence, but you're likely never going to get evidence to trust unless you do trust. Do you know what I mean? I think trust is established when we, again, can kind of sit in the knowledge that, you know what, this is me, this is for me, I'm exploring, and I'm going to see what happens. We will find the trustworthy opportunities, the trustworthy people, once we open ourselves to that. And yeah, it might mean you get nicked here and there. You might not have the best experiences all the time, but I'm a believer that trust breeds trust, respect breeds respect, success breeds success. So kind of let's go out there. If you're open to be trusting, I think the first thing you must trust is your gut. I'm a believer that your gut is a really good barometer. And as you trust more, you get to inform that barometer even more. And you get to have some pretty awesome experiences when we kind of let our guard down for a bit there.
Yeah, everyone that's listening right now, that is the intelligent answer of the day right there. That was phenomenal. And I'd love to add something to that. I'll share my experience now. But I remember, so when I was a teenager, I did some fun things. Let's just say I screwed around, did some things like that. But I just remember I got in trouble one time, and my grandfather he came down and he was taking me. I don't even remember where he was taking me, but he started talking to me about this trust, right? Because I had broken trust with my parents. He started talking to me about it, and I was like, all right, this is pretty important. But I remember the one sentence I'll never forget from him is when he said, the best way to collapse, like, just society, relationships, anything, the best way to collapse anything is to remove trust from a situation.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, that is like really profound. I just remember, and I'll always remember that. I'm like, I think honestly we need more of that today. Like, there's how many precautions are like people putting in place to like protect themselves. I like to extend that branch of trust. I'll say, hey, I trust you to, pay me or whatever. Like when I do business or whatever with someone, I'm like, hey, I trust you to pay me. I'm not gonna like hackle you or anything, but if that doesn't happen, then you're not going to receive my service anymore. Just simple as that. But for me, I just love the thoughts that you mentioned by trust. I think it's almost like an act of faith. It's like, hey, you're making yourself vulnerable, and you're like, I'm trusting you to do what I need you to do. And great answers all around. So I hate to wrap this up here, but if I know you mentioned a podcast, you also have a business, things like that. What's the best way they can get a hold of you, reach out to you? Do you have like a website, things like that? What's the best way they can do that?
Totally. Moneynavigator.ca, or search Money Navigator on any of your social media platforms. I will likely pop up and be all up in your face everywhere you look. My work is really to help women create wealth confidently and unapologetically. So if there's anyone who's struggling with that, if you're saying one thing and doing something else, or if you're just stuck in fear or overwhelm, that's where I come in to kind of help maneuver. And it's always from a place of, believe me, I've been there. Trust me, I cannot judge anyone who's making a mess with their money, because I've done some pretty awful things myself. And it's coming out of that I'm very, very confident in my capacity to help people, because I've done some pretty awful stuff myself. So yes, moneynavigator.ca. I'm up here in Canada in the White North, and I'm really happy to help the world of women who are struggling with that. And let me just plug this, Josh, if I may. I've got a money personality assessment that I would love for people to take. If you go to my website, it's just take the assessment. It comes right back to that ownership. Let's own who you are and how you relate to money, and then we create strategy. I'm right back at ownership. Awesome word.
Yeah, thank you for that. So for those of you that want to take that assessment, I think you should go take it. I might go take that myself. I want to see what that has to do. So Hadriana, thank you for coming on. I had a pleasure speaking with you, hearing what you had to say. So just thank you all around for coming on.
Thanks so much for having me, Josh. This was fun, as I knew it would be, because I had listened to your other episodes. And you know what? Thanks for being open. Thanks for sharing so candidly. And yeah, great conversation all around, great insights. And I'm going to go check Steph Curry out again.
Thank you. Great player, by the way. So everyone, that is Hadriana Leo. As you can tell, that's an intelligent person. And I would go check out her stuff. She has great things to offer. And go take her assessment. I think that will just be something that a lot of us can benefit from. Stay tuned till next week. We have a great guest lined up for that week as well. See you guys next week, and let's get after it. Hey everyone, if you liked this episode and would like to hear more, be sure to hit that subscribe or follow button. We release a new episode every Wednesday for you guys to listen to. Thank you guys so much for the support that you give. We could not have done this without you guys. If you would like to be a potential guest on the show, check out intelligentconvos.com, and there should be a form there for you guys to fill out.
Thank you guys again, and let's get after it.